did is we got a piece of paper and we folded it into 4 sections. Once you have that down, you will notice that at your tables you have a still life set up. There are more fruit than you need. Some of the bananas at your tables are very tricky to actually draw. They look kind of odd shaped. They're a harder one to do. Because we just want to practice this with a different materials, you need to make sure that you have 2 that you can see very well in front of you. Make sure once you've put them on the little bucket that you leave them for the whole time that everyone at your table is drawing them. If you move them while someone's working on it, it changes their whole picture. So once it's set, everybody needs to agree, and then you need to work on it. Okay? So you have 4 boxes. The way I start is I'm going to draw sort of the outlines of my 2 shapes and the top of the bucket in each of my 4 squares to start. Okay? And these are kind of like those thumbnail sketches, so this is a good practice to show me. You kind of want to be looking, now this is like a pepper that's very old and obviously falling apart, and here is my red apple. The red apple is in front of it from my point of view, so I want to make sure that I can sort of draw that on here. So this is going to be kind of, this pepper kind of sort of has these sides to it. So here is my first drawing. I'm going to recreate this 3 more times, okay? So you should be looking back there. The more we do this, the better we get at looking and drawing things. So this is a skill that we should practice anyway. It kind of looks like a piece of popcorn. My apple, like I said, and my pepper are about the same size. So that I know this apple looks more like an oval than it does a circle. So I want to make sure that I'm doing that. I kind of draw an oval that's squashed so that I get the surface of the bucket so they don't look like they're flying in outer space. Does that make sense? They're kind of on a table. So I'm going to do one more. You shouldn't lean on the tables. If we all just don't lean, then we don't have those problems. I used to teach at a school in Waukesha called White Rock, and I used to tell them los manos abajo la mesa, hands below the table. That way you don't have the opportunity to lay on the table and block someone else's view. So I've got my wobbly pepper here and my apple shape. Okay, so now once I have all those on here, we're going to do 4 different materials to show value and shading on our papers. The first one I'm going to use is my pencil. And I like to turn my pencil sideways so that I can use more surface area. If I'm using just the tip, it's just a little skinny line. But if I turn it sideways, I have the ability to cover more area a little bit faster. You kind of have to hold it a little bit closer to the tip so that you can control it better. Now, when we are looking at things on paper that we are drawing, this is 3D, this is 2D. I have to show value, and the way I create it so that it starts to pop off my paper is I'm adding the value to the sides. Typically, we kind of do all of the edges first. Our brain sort of translates it that way because we know that behind it we can't see it, so it's in distance, so it's farther behind. So we tend to have, our brain reads a picture that way in our heads. So we can kind of do a little bit of that. Now, if you're watching how I'm doing this, I kind of like scratchy, jaggedy lines, and then I kind of run over it with my finger. There's also a really dark shadow. If you're up close, there's kind of this really, really dark shadow underneath the thing. Now, if we were lucky enough to have spotlights on top of our still lives, we would have better highlights and shadows, okay? But we don't. We have fluorescent lighting and some natural lighting, and it means that the light is bouncing from everywhere. So if you remember when we squinted at the skull picture the other day, you can see, if you squint at your sculpture or your still life in front of you, you will be able to see more of the shadows, more of the darker yellows versus the lighter yellows. So you can do that to see it a little bit better. And like I know that there's white on here, so if you know that there's areas where there's white, However, if it's yellow, it should probably be gray because my paper is white, so it's not white in every part of this yellow pepper. Again, the pepper's got sort of this really wonky line underneath it. That's a shadow as well. Okay, so there's my first box. After you do the pencil box, you are going to get some markers. Is there a red one under my table somewhere? Yeah. Yep, I see it. Fell between the cracks. So last time I did a green apple, so we will do the red apple. If you are doing that, it's good to pick monochromatic colors. So that means colors that are in the same family, right? One's lighter, one's darker. To do this red apple, I'm going to start by filling in most of my apple, except for the areas where I really see some of the highlights, with this pink marker. Now I know it's not pink, but it's a lighter shade of red, right? Because we're actually, pink is what happens. How do I make pink? Red and white. So I'm just doing a lighter version of it. Then I can take my red and I can go over it and I can find where some of the darks are so that I can define sort of where my apple is. Now this apple is kind of interesting because if you're close you can kind of see these lines through it. It looks like it was painted, which is okay because it's fake. But we want to do that. Now I can also go over my markers to darken it a little with like a gray marker to give it some more shadows. Okay, but I don't want to I want to make sure that I don't do it everywhere. Okay, because when I start doing it everywhere, it's just one color. It doesn't start to look like it's three-dimensional and popping off the paper. Okay, do you have a question?
No.
No, okay. All right. So then we'll pretend that my pepper is green for the sake of the markers I have here. Same technique. I'm going to fill in the majority of it. I'm going to kind of figure out where the lightest part is and leave that blank for my highlight. And then I'm going to outline some of those areas that are darker with the green. Remember, it's the edges typically that we see more of that with. Okay. Now, at every table, there is a brand new box. They've been used today, so they're a little worn down, but it's a brand new box of oil crayons. With the oil crayons, my expectation is that you're going to share with your table partners. So if someone's using the colors you need, do a different one. Do your marker or whatever. The markers are going to be located on the side counter where you can get whatever colors you need for your picture. Okay? When I do the oil pastels, I'm going to do them sort of the same way. If I've got this red, I got to find the pink, this red apple, I'm going to grab a pink and a red. If yours are worn down enough and you feel like you need to peel the paper, go for it. Just make sure all this gets in the trash can. That's our responsibility as artists. These are nice materials because they are very soft and I can fill a big area really fast with them. Okay, it's going to work the same way. I'm going to overlap my colors, but they start to blend together, which is kind of cool. Okay, I can also go over this with a white oil pastel, and I can bring in some more light colors. I don't have to have it all. I'm going to do that. I can also go back with a black to sort of define the edges. And that shadow below. Okay? Now this I'll do in yellow. If you have a yellow colored object, it would be good to start with the yellow. What color would be a good partner with yellow to show me darker values? Kaylee? Orange. Correct. Oh. So I don't have a gold, although this is kind of a brown. We'll try it. It's not bad. This color, it's not really a color I have in my marker collection, right? So orange is probably going to be a little bit better of a choice because I have more access to orange colors. But I can do that. I can also take a little bit of the orange over it, and it looks nice as well. Same thing. I can go back with a little bit of white, and I can blend some of that together if I feel like it's too blocky, if I want it to feel more smooth and rounded. I can also use the black again. If I did it on this one, I should probably do a little bit on this guy too. Okay. All right. Now, the last one that we are going to talk about is something called pen and ink. I expect these to look like this when you leave class today. They should be able to be laid flatly and closed neatly. Is pen and ink. And for my pen and ink, I'm going to be using a Sharpie. So you all have about 2 Sharpies at your table. Hopefully you'll all be sharing so you don't all need them all at the same time. When you do the pen and ink, now I drew this because I like to at least give the foundational sketch in here, meaning I did it with the pencil first and then I'm coming back to add to it. There are 2 things I'm going to teach you today. So if I'm going to use a marker and it's all black like this, and I'm going to fill this in, what might happen if I just start coloring? The pear, she said it's going to look rotten. What's going to happen, Bo?
Well, if you would take, let's say, just for the sake of using the pepper, because it's yellow, it's a light color, if you would just start drawing over, the black is going to come in, and it's not going to be like straight lines, it's going to be like, it'd be like messed up by lines. It'd also kind of ruin the markers, because then it'd make them darker. So.
Yeah. What else, Monica?
Since the marker's permanent, if you do it right away and you don't like it, you can't go back and fix it.
True. You can't fix it, so you have to commit to it. And it could get too dark too fast. Okay? So artists over the years have come up with some techniques. The first one I'm going to show you is called cross-hatching and hatching. So hatching is when you take lines and you use them to create value. Hatching is just lines going in the same direction. If you've noticed, I've curved my lines a little. This helps us give the illusion that it's 3D. Okay? Cross-hatching is when you take those lines and you start to go over them, and they become like checkerboard, crossing. They're crossing each other. Okay? Again, you don't want to get too carried away, because if you do it everywhere, then it looks flat. So you want to think about the value of it. So this gives us like a gray and a white. And if you want, once you kind of get it on there, if you want to do your edge a little bit darker, you could kind of cross-hatch a little bit thicker around the edge to make it stand off more. So it looks more gradual. Okay? Please don't sit behind me. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. Come on closer. I have one more thing to show you. Now, one other way to do this is called stippling. And stippling is when you're using little dots to show value as well. So you just kind of place them at random, and as you spread them out, it looks lighter. As you overlap them and get them closer to the edge, they appear darker. Okay? So these are the types of things you're going to be practicing today. As you finish up, you should be showing this to me. It should not take you more than the 45 minutes of class. So at 1:45, that's in 15 minutes, it should take you about 15 minutes to do this, if you stay on task and you don't talk too much. That way you'll have the other 45 minutes to work on your wild projects. Any questions? Okie dokie. Hang on. I'm going to spread out the paper. You can cut it. Here you go. The paper